don't know when to like kind of stop an ad or turn it off or make a decision, or when it's too late, when it's not going to perform, when to cut your losses, so to speak. How to know if an ad is going to perform, if I should let it run, if I should stop it, if I should change, if it's going well. How to know if I'm doing well or not, right? Well, we have certain benchmarks and KPIs at Trummer Digital. And yeah, so let's get right into it, guys. The main metrics that I look at when I'm running ads are things like CPM, click through rate, cost per click, cost per link click, and cost per lead or cost per acquisition. And so, first and foremost, when I turn on an ad, a lot of times I'm doing a dynamic creative, so that spend is going to kind of spread out amongst a couple different captions and images. And so sometimes I'll give it a few days actually to let that spend rack up. So if we're talking like 20 to 30 US dollars a day in spend, I'll let it maybe spend about 50, 60 bucks. And typically in most local business niches, where it's kind of business to consumer, like, you know, dentistry or chiropractor or even plumbing and stuff like that, our cost per lead should be anywhere from like 10 to 15 bucks. We've gotten that down as low as like $5 a lead, even with moderately qualifying in-app Facebook forums that have like 2 to 3 questions on them. And so, you know, first thing I'm looking at is how is that spend being distributed amongst the different images. So if like all $60 of that is going into one image and that image got like no leads, I'm definitely turning off or removing that image so I can redistribute that spend, because ultimately, I'm typically waiting until about 2 to 3x our KPI or key performance indicator, which is typically a cost per lead of, again, $10 to $15, right? So, you know, 3x $10 to $15 is anywhere from like 30 to 40 bucks. So if an image is spent 30 to 40 bucks and I'm expecting a cost per lead of $10, that image is not going to be performing well. Now, that being said, we consider other key performance indicators or metrics like the CPM. So say the CPM on that one is jacked all the way up to like $100. Our typical benchmark for CPM is about $20. That'll mean that it's in general costing us like 5 times more expensive in the case of $100 CPM versus a $20 CPM. It's 5 times more expensive just to get a hold of that audience. So yeah, of course, our cost per lead is going to be at least 5 times more expensive as well. So that might be why our cost per lead is very we haven't gotten many leads at $60 in spend already, because the audience cost is just so expensive. And so as a result, we're barely getting many views and then barely getting many clicks, and then of course we're not going to get that many leads. So that's why we look at other things. So typically from a downstream perspective, how much is it costing us just to show our post to the audience? How much is it then costing us to get a click on our ad? How much is it then costing us to get an outbound link click into our form, right? And so from that perspective, we want to have a benchmark of a CPM of about $20, and then from that, we want to get a cost per click of anywhere from like $1 to $3, cost per link click of anywhere from like $2 to $4. So people are clicking into our form, apparently decently interested, from about $2 to $4, and then, you know, one out of every couple people that actually click into the form are going to submit it. So our cost per lead, you know, from the $2 to $4 can be anywhere from like $8 to $15, right? And so that's how the waterfall kind of goes. So if one of these benchmarks is super jacked up, that's when we're going to have to consider that into our analysis. Otherwise, guys, a lot of times it does have to just do with the images themselves. So when we're testing, we like to test widely different images. So maybe like a graphic, maybe like a live action photo, like a stock photo, or one of you and your team. We like to do black bar text above and below the images a lot of times, like with some, you know, big text. It just catches the eye and it's very simple. So if you're like a chiropractor office, you can say, you know, Smith Chiropractor, free consultation, or like neck pain, question mark, free consultation for chiropractor services, you know, something like that, right? So when you're scrolling, it's not just a picture of like some stock photo of like some guy like manipulating some other dude's body. Like it actually is like chiropractor, free consultation. Yeah, I do need that. Okay, cool. So stuff like that. We test widely different creatives. We let the spend, you know, kind of spread out amongst the different creatives. We let Facebook kind of have its input in as far as what it thinks the algorithm thinks will do well in your certain scenario. Yeah, because the algorithm does have a lot of data, guys. So we do give some flexibility to Facebook in the form of dynamic creative as opposed to manually A/B testing every creative. Because also, if you're manually A/B testing, you're spreading the budget out so thin. Whereas we want to spread the budget out and give it some flexibility, but let the AI kind of allocate it slightly more to the ones that it already knows and thinks will do better. So, and then over time, as you get a dynamic creative that's just performing well, you've rotated out or kind of cut out some bad images that have been getting some spend but not doing that well, and then in their places you put in some new creatives that ultimately end up doing well. Now you have just a dynamic creative with like a basket of like 10 different images that are all doing well. And so that's kind of how we, iterate, assess our KPIs, know when to kill stuff. Other levers we pull, guys, are things like offers. So if your ads are just all not doing that well, a lot of times we'll do a more enticing offer. If you're just starting off with like, hey, we're a plant shop over here, come check us out, versus then we're like, okay, we're not getting that many results, let's go in with like free 50% off or like whatever the case is, right? Of course, I know you as a business owner, you want to keep your margins, and I agree, but at the same time, our job is to get you results and customers. So a lot of times when you take such a stern negotiating stance where you're like, I'm not giving anything, it's like people aren't going to come and buy from you then. Sometimes you got to, give them a little treat. And so sometimes you come in with another offer, throw some of those creatives in there, and now all of a sudden we can, get that cost per lead down even lower and get some more results for you. So we rotate offers, creatives, captions. They can, it helps. We usually throw about 3 to 5 different caption variations in there. Hook, body, call to action, structure, and that does pretty well. So with that being said, guys, hope these tips have helped kind of just give you an idea as far as like when to turn things off, when to kill an ad, how to know if an ad's doing well. You should have benchmarks that things should be around this point, and if they're not, well, something can probably be improved, whether that's just the targeting, like the CPM, the audience cost itself is just really expensive for whatever reason. Maybe things are too constrained, or people aren't clicking or submitting your form. Something could be changed as far as the offer, the creative, and things like that. So just kind of mapping your expectations and your KPIs and benchmarks to what data you're getting, and then once you're like 2 to 3 times over those benchmarks, it's time to make a decision. So that being said, guys, if you did want to work with us at Trummer Digital to run your ads, help you manage the back end as far as booking and closing the leads that you do get, and doing that in an optimal manner, because it's one thing to hire an agency, but it's another thing to actually manage the leads and get the closes and results and customers that you want on the back end. We definitely help with that, and we'd love to help you with that, so feel free to book a call in the links on our channel. And with that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.